I'm going to show you how to make the free Clover coaster from Kreative Kiwi. For this I'm going to be using a 4x4 hoop, a layer of cutaway stabiliser, a couple of threads, some masking tape, some pins with heads on them, my squizzers and my fabrics and batting cut to size. You'll find a link to this design in the video description below. We're going to start off by hooping our cutaway stabiliser, so place it over the outer hoop and then insert the inside one. Then we're going to pin around the top edge of the hoop to stop our stabiliser from being pulled down between the two hoop parts. So take a pin with a head on it, place it on the in the hoop, push it through your stabiliser and then bring it back round and through the stabiliser again, and you're going to do that on all four sides. The larger the hoop, the more pins you will use. Load your file for the coaster into your machine along with your neutral thread, and then you're going to stitch round number 1, and that's going to give you your placement outline for your batting. Place your batting over the outline and tape it in place. Pop your hoop into your machine and stitch round number 2 to secure it. Remove your tape and then you're going to trim away the excess batting from around the edge of the stitch line. Place your fabric for the outer border over the outline of the batting and then tape it in place. Pop your hoop into your machine and stitch round number 3 to secure it. Next we're going to place our inner fabric over the stitch line here. Now if you've got a dark fabric and you're putting a light fabric on top and you're worried about the colour showing through, you can actually trim out this piece here. In fact, that's what we're going to do now. So just make a little nick in the fabric for your scissors, and then carefully trim around the edge, taking care not to cut your batting, of course, because you don't want to remove that. Place your centre fabric over the outline and tape it in place. Pop your hoop into your machine and stitch round number 4, and that's going to secure it in place. Load your thread colour for the quilting of this area here into your machine, and then you're going to stitch round number 5. I'm using cream for here. So remove your tape from your centre fabric, and we're now going to trim away the excess fabric from around the edge of the stitch line, taking care of course not to cut the stitches. Load your thread colour for the satin stitching around the border here into your machine. I'm going to go with light brown, and then you're going to stitch round number 6, and that's going to zigzag around the edge. Then it's going to do the satin stitching and then stitch a placement outline for our fabric for the actual clover itself. We're now going to place our fabric over the clover outline and tape it in place. Load your thread colour for the clover into your machine, and then you're going to stitch round number 7, and that's going to secure the fabric. Remove the tape from your clover fabric, and then you're going to trim up the excess fabric from around the edge of the stitch line, taking care of course not to cut your stitch line. Making sure that you've got your thread colour for the satin stitch around the edge of the clover loaded into your machine. You're now going to stitch round number 8, and that's going to zigzag and then do the satin stitching around the border of the clover. We're now going to add the backing. So you want your 2 pieces of folded fabric, and you're going to place them on the front of the hoop, and we're going to overlap them. So I'm just going to bring this to the edge of my outer fabric, and you want the fold towards the center, and these are going to overlap a little bit in the middle. And then we're going to tape them in place. And you want to make sure that your fabrics are held at the side here where the overlap is, so that as the foot travels round, it can't get caught up underneath the fabrics. So I just put a bit of extra tape each side as well. Load your neutral thread for your fabric, border fabric should I say, into your machine, and then you're going to stitch round number 9, and that's going to secure the backing fabric in place. You can now remove all your tape and the pins from around the edge of your hoop, and then you're going to free your coaster from the hoop as well. Then you're going to need a nice sharp pair of fabric scissors, and you're going to trim around the edge, leaving a good 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way round. So take your scissors and then trim. Then we're going to snip the corners towards the stitching, so that when we turn it out the right way, our corners fold nice and neatly. Take care not to cut your stitches though. So what happens if you snip this stitch line accidentally? You're going to have to stitch around the edge just inside the stitch line with your sewing machine. That's the only way around it. We're now going to turn this out the right way, so push your thumb into the corners and then push each corner out. And all that remains now is to press it. Now that our coaster's pressed, we can now call this project complete. I hope you enjoyed this stitch along. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to be notified of new videos as soon as they're published. Do pop along to Kreative Kiwi's Facebook group. There's always lots of ideas, help and inspiration there for everybody. And thank you very much for joining me. You'll find a link to this design in the video description below, along with lots of other information such as where I get my supplies and equipment, and some discount codes for you as well.